All right. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining this conversation where we get to talk about creating online courses and blended courses for PD. I do want to welcome you. If you want to play along with the home version of our game, bit.ly/BPL experiences, and you'll see a number of things on that page, but the session slides are the ones that we want to focus on. And so I do want to sort of state for the outcomes, and then and actually I need to switch over so you can see all of the outcomes to this version, and hopefully my face moves across the screen here. So our outcomes are to better understand the online and blended course development and how we might support one another in doing this. We will be, hopefully, crafting a community of practice for these course development experiences, as well as sort of determining the toolkit and the process for development, specifically with an exit criteria course, as well as whatever else you guys are working on. Gretchen shared some really great stuff earlier today. I know a lot of people are already working on these courses, so it's not like we are starting from scratch, but it is a time to come together and have that conversation. John, I see a second person hiding there who would like to get in on it as well, John Dumbleton. But I would love to open it up to Lori if you want to unmute yourself and share anything else that we might want to tackle today as we have this conversation.
Thanks, guys. This is fun. It's like the Brady Bunch. And some of you don't even know who the Brady Bunch is, and now I'm very sad. Really, what we're looking for is how do we shift? And some of you have already done some work, which was great. I had a great surprise hearing about some of the blended courses that have been developed. We need to think about how do we start doing this so that we, like Ben said, start housing a course catalog so that teachers and principals have kind of 24/7 access. But we also want to make sure, much like some of you, like when you see a certain company and they've developed an online course, you completely trust the quality and you're going to get just this like nice standard. And that's what you guys are renowned for in a face-to-face space. So where we want to go is also with a blended space. We also want to make sure that the blended experience commits and ensures a cohort experience so that people are also, this is part of that quality control, for lack of a better term, that people are submitting their practice and we're seeing what learning happens with kids, which is a huge advantage over the traditional professional learning model that has been, I learn and then I go, and if I'm in a cohort, I make sure student learning, but it's also about that we then start watching and giving feedback about practice in a real way. So I think it really affords us some great stuff. As Ben said, many of you have already done it. We haven't had a centralized conversation. It is not meant to slow anyone down. It really is so that we can start saying like the way that teachers learn and principals learn here is 24/7 access. And eventually we'll go to students as well. But so anyway, thank you so much. There's deep interest from principals, directors, the board, Rico, everyone else in that we develop. One of the ways we can learn how to do this is through developing an exit criteria course. I hear that there may be something already developed, which is great. And then how might we make it a generalized experience for people so that they can just learn that, and then we'll take it through kind of a process course as well. So that was way too much. So I'm going to mute myself, which is kind of like putting myself in a corner. But hopefully that frames it a little bit too, that this is kind of that next space. Get us curating and housing some great professional learning that is already happening, but then how do we then do it consistently and put it together, a catalog and all that good stuff. So I guess we're kind of going into the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I want to do sort of with that frame and sort of with these outcomes in mind is I want to start a discussion really about what these online courses can and should be, and the way in which we can support each other in doing that. And I like to start with this question in order to get us thinking. Now, because we do have quite a few people on this, I'm going to start the discussion actually within the group chat. So most of you are on a computer, and so you can look at your screen and see the group chat button. It's sort of a slide out that comes out, and if I start typing here, you can see what I'm doing. But I would like to ask this question: what is the difference that you see between a website that has a bunch of content on it and an online course? What is the difference between us just putting a whole bunch of curriculum on a website and truly creating an online course? So take a moment, reply within the chat, and you can talk to one another, and then we'll pull out some ideas and do that in the audio space as well. But take a moment and answer that question within the chat. It's okay if it's silent for a minute, give you think time to think about it and to interact within that.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. And then that's the comm plan, the communication plan. Program director did this already on the right. That's perfect.
Okay, so they'll shoot it out to confirm that's the right school for next month. And so start using the leadership board.
Yep.
Okay. Bye.
And it's not just, maybe it's not just the program director. It's, how might you?
So I really like that, Amanda. You said feedback is a huge one. What do you see as the most important aspect of feedback that is a part of an online course? And you may have to mute and unmute as the case may be, so just be aware of that.
I would think that it's the same thing that we'd want to give to our students, which is that it is timely and it's targeted feedback. So it's really addressing a learner's next steps, and it's in time when they need it.
Addressing a learner's next steps. Yeah, I think that's really valuable. Kenny, you said a website is information, an online course is synthesizing information. If you would unmute and just talk about what does that mean to synthesize information? Is it the teacher that's doing that? Is it the students that are doing that? You know, how does that work? And it's okay if we don't have audio from everybody, but I would like to give a couple folks a chance there to have that conversation. Go ahead,
I think
Kenny.
it's a mixture of both. I think it allows for like feedback is one of them. And I also think that it allows for just communication and collaboration on the topic. Whereas a website, you don't have much collaboration. You just go on and you're seeking information.
Right, so it's this sort of one-way medium rather than a two-way medium, which is something that you, a number of you have talked about. John Doubleton, and I'm using full names just because there are like 12 Johns on the call right now. John Doubleton, you said that there needs to be direction and purpose. What is the direction and purpose of an online course or a blended course that uses an online platform?
Well, I mean, I think that just depends on what the course is, but I was answering the question, like, what's the difference between just like online content versus a blended course? And I think online content allows for users to, you know, enter the learning in whatever way they choose, whereas a blended course could be, you know, facilitated and learners could be guided to meet certain objectives and to certain ends.
Well, and I think that there is a component there of that there is an outcome. It's a stated outcome, right? Whether it's by the teacher or by the students there, that they actually understand what the outcome is, whereas a web page full of information could have many outcomes, but it's not necessarily something that you know what that outcome is, that there is a learning outcome in that regard. John Boo, a lot of websites are like a lecture that we choose to go to. This is not always the case anymore, though. I'd love you to go a little bit deeper with that. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I was just thinking about, I mean, websites is kind of this ability to deliver content of whatever. I guess it could be about anything, and kind of thinking about how that has evolved to where, now even a lot of blogs and things have become somewhat interactive. The applets that are embedded within a website, it seems like more and more websites are moving towards some sort of user input to guide the user experience.
Right, and I think that that's a large component of most social websites, right, where there is some interaction that you are having there rather than just the digestion of sort of web 1.0 content, right, where it's just a series of web pages that are hyperlinked. Yeah, I like that a lot. James Hogan, we'll just keep on going with full names here. So you sort of hit upon that idea of that it is on, the website is just one way. I would love for you to talk about the sharing of actual teaching. What does that mean to you when you are sharing actual teaching versus just, distributing content?
I was just thinking specifically for when I've felt like I was getting something from an online class, it's usually, it's that opportunity for teachers to actually share. I tried this. This is something specific I tried. This is something for my students. This is something, a strategy I tried. It's, I think specifically for teachers, they don't have a whole lot of chances to actually apply things and get feedback. And like John was saying, John Boo was saying, I think there are some sites that try that to set it up for it's not just giving out information or click here, but they're set up for a bit more of sharing of thoughts and strategies and struggles, and where you can actually share a video clip or you can share a student work or whatever that might look like.
I like how you've expanded what's possible there, right? It's not just a document that you are reading or you are looking specifically at, what the original facilitator or teacher had in mind, but also getting that that aspect of student work or the things that they are bringing to the table that can then further the conversation.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Kimberly Jensen, ability to use different venues and practices for collaboration, teacher video of practice, discussions, those kinds of things. What are you thinking with that? We've got good feedback. I like it.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to. Two of us are sitting here with our computers by each other, so it's making.
You gotta move away. You gotta be in different rooms. I know
we're trying to move away from each other. Can you repeat? Sorry, you were looking at the first
comment.
So you
were talking about. Yeah, the ability
to use different venues and practices for collaboration.
What does that mean to you?
Hello?
Yep, you're good.
Oh, I can't hear you, Ben.
Is yours muted? You have to turn yours up.
Right. Okay, can you hear me? Thumbs up. Okay. So just what I was thinking was that you could use different venues for it. So thinking about like just blended learning experiences. So it doesn't have to be something that is just 100% virtual and online, and that it's an opportunity to also include a lot of video of instruction. And so it gives teachers a chance to not only see instruction within their own buildings, but a chance to share what's going on across buildings within our district. So in particular, I was thinking about, we've been talking about a workshop PD that we are thinking of having, and then there are a couple other virtual learning opportunities for nonfiction and fiction that we want to do, and a part of that is videoing yourself trying on some of the strategies and sharing that with the group, and then having feedback protocols so that you're growing within your practice, but then other people are also able to see what it looks like being done different ways. So that's what I was thinking about with just thinking there are different venues. And I was thinking like the flexibility for coaching along with that could be some virtual coaching, or that could be some side-by-side with the teacher partner in the building that could stem from the learning done in an online class.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here, you can mute yourself again if you'd like, but you know, the way in which you look at the right venue for the right purpose, right? So if you want feedback on a piece of video, that can be done virtually. If you want direct coaching and back and forth where you're sort of coaching someone through a workshop, that might need to be done face-to-face, or it might need to be done in that teacher's classroom. So there are opportunities for multiple different venues and modes. Sam, you have shared a couple of things in here, and I like that you're taking it down to the, you know, the actual classroom level. Different avenues for blended and online only. We've had an AP Chem and physics teachers build out different modules. And I hear a lot of folks talking about sort of making the learning more modular and saying, you know, for this component, we would like to do a video reflection. For this component, we would like to dive into this content and receive feedback on it. And so there's a lot of opportunity there for making the learning more modular. I think the only folks we haven't hit are Shelly and Lori. Do either one of you have something you want to add to the conversation at this point before we move on to sort of really looking at what the structure is? Online wait time is my favorite thing because you're not sure if people are trying to talk. You're not sure if people, so Shelly, it looks like you're trying to talk, but you might need to unmute yourself and then.
Oh, possibly that would be a good idea. Yeah, okay. No, we're engaged in, we have our online or our blended course of study going on right now, and then I have a web-based course that's starting on Friday. And I'm just I'm thinking of all the responses and thinking about ways to even revise what we're already doing. So, yeah.
Awesome. And that's exactly what we want to try and do here, is to sort of create this group of folks who are trying things, who are creating things, because one of the core outcomes, and we talked a little bit about this, is how do we then have expectations for one another and then expectations for others who might go through this same process and say, this is what a quality online experience looks like and feels like. Okay, so hopefully you have all of that. I will be copying the chat before we hop off so that we have all of the great ideas that are being shared there. So don't worry about, you know, oh man, Kimberly said something amazing, we need to grab that and things like that. So, so we want to make sure that we're sort of capturing the learning as it's happening here. But essentially, I'd like to walk you through sort of the three big components of how online courses and blended courses have sort of traditionally been focused. The first is the content and objectives component. That is the sort of most traditional way of organizing, and that essentially the first online courses were really just the content and those objectives and, you know, work through. I mean, it's sort of the, what do you call those? Courses that you sent away in the mail for correspondence courses, right? So like that was the first model of a correspondence course, and, you know, it's a distance learning experience and all of that. So, and then we started to add in a couple of other things, and this is where it started to get interesting, where you have the conversation and collaboration happening in the same platform, and you have the evidence of learning and application, where the participants are actually sharing back to the learning management system or to the facilitator. They are sharing that information back and they are getting feedback, but they are doing that in a way that is actually applying what they are learning and not just consuming what they are learning. So in most traditional LMSs, they focus on the content and objectives. And even something as robust as Schoology still very much focuses on the content and objective component, where, all right, these are the modules that you're going to work through, you are going to have some assessment, you are going to then be done with the course. The recommendation that I would like to move forward with is that we actually shift that a little bit, and that we actually focus on the conversation and collaboration component as the core experiences. Not that we wouldn't have extremely strong content and objectives, or that we wouldn't have folks who are sharing their evidence of learning and that they are applying, but that actually what we know from completion rates of online courses, what we know for effect size for actually taking an online course and having that application, is the relationship with the other members of the cohort and the relationship to the teacher of that blended experience or online experience. And so if we can focus there, then we can start to move the needle on how many folks actually do some completion. And actually, if you are so inclined to open the speaker notes on that page, I did put a link in, and I think it's on actually the next slide, which we'll talk about. But there is a link there to looking at massively open online courses and the research for completion rates, as well as the difference between those online courses that focused on the communication collaboration and those that focused on the content. So there's a difference between what they call a CMOOC or connectivist, constructivist, massively open online course, and an XMOOC, which is just, here is the content, these are the assessments, and you're going on your way. So if you are that kind of person who wants to look at the research, you can definitely do that. But essentially what we would like to recommend is that we all get very good at leading online experiences within Google Classroom. And so here, I'm going to move my little guy down here because I think it'll get in the way of that conversation. So where are we supposed to go for that is a great question. We will hit that in just one moment, okay? So, so in terms of Google Classroom, I want to talk about why I think this is sort of the right tool and the way in which we might support one another in doing that. One, it is focused on the conversation and collaboration. It really is a stream-based system of understanding, who your participants are, working with them directly. And then the other component is that this tool is already ready for teachers to be able to use in their classrooms with kids. And so whatever we model as a professional learning experience can be then used with kids. So the teachers that we are that are joining in the professional learning experience can then take that and use that with kids. So Kimberly, I'm going to let you ask the full question and sort of what your thinking is on, like, how do we get good together? Is that the question, or what are you thinking about?
Sorry, I was just trying to find, you told us to go to something on the computer, and John and I are sitting here together and we can't find it.
I think your presenter's notes, Ben, you asked us to go to your presenter's notes.
I'm sorry, I move very quickly when I get excited about something. So just to take a step back and do that again. So if you are at the bit.ly/BPL experiences page, so that is the this website here that allows for you to see the presentation that we've been using, as well as a number of other resources. So bit.ly/BPL experiences. If you click on the little cog on the presentation, you can open speaker notes for any Google Slides that you might want to do that on. And then you can walk through and see where the presenter's notes are. You can also walk through the deck at your own pace. But if you are so interested in that research, it is on slide 5. So did that help with the, like, let's go back and learn how we did the thing that Ben just skipped over because he was already ready? Okay, I apologize. Please let me know when I am going either too fast or that it just doesn't make sense, because I think that it's important to start looking at that. Okay, so in Google Classroom, I actually think it might be valuable for us briefly to just take a look at what those elements are. And Gretchen, if you are okay, I would love to use an example of a class that actually is sort of in beta testing to take a look at that. But I'm not going to pull it up because we can look at anything, but I think it might be valuable to look at a real thing and talk about it. Does that work?
Go ahead.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. I know I put you on the spot and that's not super cool, but it's fun. So at classroom.google.com, you have the ability, as long as you are logging in with your APS online or your APS Google account, so the aurorak12.org account, you can actually see all of the courses that you have access to. And if you have never logged in, make sure you choose that you are a teacher. Because if you are a student, you won't be able to create classes. You won't be able to do a lot of the things that you need to do. So if you've never been in, make sure that you choose teacher. But I want to look at the Cultures of Thinking class that they're already starting to beta test, where we have some of the content pieces as well as some of the assessment types things, right? So the demonstration of learning components as a part of this, as well as some of the questions, okay? Where you are actually asking for people to respond in a conversational way. So this is a course that is already underway. And the components here of this course, if you have never seen Google Classroom, one is obviously the stream where all of the conversation is happening, where the understanding is, the checks for understanding and the assessment components are all within here. And we will in sort of future sessions talk about how Google Forms now does quizzes that auto grade and that you can provide instantaneous feedback for incorrect responses, or that you can go deeper and do some more rigorous assessment, and they can actually attach a video to their form response that they capture from their classroom. We will talk about all of those things as components, but really robust stuff. Now, a lot of folks who look at Google Classroom and they say, well, I really like the component of choosing content and objectives as the focus. They're like, well, where does the content live? Because as soon as I post something new, everything moves down the page, right? And so how is it that I can make sure that the content that I need to have happen stays up top? And so there are a couple of things that are really valuable. If I want this, if I want the introduction to stay at the top, or if I want to move this to the top, you can actually restructure your posts so that the things you want to stay up top, stay up top. And so you can move it all the way to the top if you think that's the most important thing that you want people to be looking at, and it sort of structures their thinking. And then the second thing, and we need to make really good use of this, is actually in the About section, where we can add a list of course materials, module by module by module, that allows for people that really need to see all of the content in a structured fashion to be able to see it that way. For the most part, a lot of folks are really gonna like the interaction, the way in which you are able to get feedback on what you are submitting to the teacher. There's lots to like about really the stream-based and conversation and collaboration-based system. But for those folks who are like, I liked the content-based system, you move it over into the About section. You can create any folder structure you want to, create a modular structure, and then that allows for people to have access to that at any time. So that is a very brief overview. However, there is lots of support. In addition to myself, we are supports for one another, and Google, which is doing this across many, many, many thousands of schools, is also a support. If you are interested in getting certified, Google Educator Certified, we have supports for that. We have a cohort that's ongoing if you want to tackle that as a part of your sort of introduction to this or ongoing learning in this. We also have the ability to do some coaching where we do some feedback. Gretchen already sent this over and said, oh, would you just give me some feedback on this course? We can do that for one another, or I can do it with you, and all of those kinds of things. The last piece before we ask for questions and things like that is that we are not alone in looking for quality online curriculum. And I'm going to move myself back up to the other corner now. Ba-da-bum. We have resources. The INACOL National Standards for Quality in Online Courses is a fantastic resource. The Standards for Online Professional Development, so each one of these links is available to you, and the Quality Matters Standards for Online Courses. The 1 and 3 are focused a little bit more on student courses, but everything within that is hyper relevant. And the middle one is specifically around online professional development and was developed in conjunction with actually the 2 organizations in 1 and 3. So That is an overall set of supports that we will need for one another. What I would love to do is talk about next steps and questions and provide any additional context or answers that you might need. Or obviously, we're going to brainstorm those. I don't have all of those answers and ideas. So, question, Kimberly, go.
Sorry, I had to unmute for a second. So we have started to create some online virtual courses, but we've and I've used both Google Classroom before, and right now we're using Schoology for a couple of our courses. And so I'm kind of wondering around the Google aspect of it and Schoology. And so I want to tell you the purpose of why we chose Schoology, and then wondering if are we as a district trying to push towards like the Google place to have it consistent. So just curious about that. But so with Schoology, why we chose to use that for our current virtual classes was because it is something we are going to offer district-wide, but then it's where we can make a copy of the actual virtual class, and then a teacher partner can use that same exact virtual class then and do that in building with teachers. And so I'm just wondering, and that's why we chose it. And so I'm wondering, is Google Classroom something where we can do that and I just need some more learning around it? Or is there some, because we wanted to create something that could be used district-wide, but once again, can be handed over to a teacher partner to then use that in their building as well. If, say, close reading is something they want to dig into more, they could choose to use that and the teacher partner could lead it in the building.
Yep. So I have a couple of thoughts around this. One, we are not interested in sort of limiting and saying you have to use this particular tool. We want to have some expectations around whenever we do use a tool that there are some things present. One of the things that we would love to support is students being able to use the same platform as professional learning. And so with Schoology, that's a little bit harder because we don't have student access for Schoology across all of our schools, and that access costs us money. And so because of that, you know, I tend to look at Google Classroom as something that's available for all of us and things like that. However, if you have a really compelling reason for looking at another tool or platform, I don't think that's a bad idea. It would really, and I think it speaks to purpose, choosing the right tool for the right job. The one thing that is really important about Schoology is sort of the course copying structure. Now in Google Classroom, if you make someone else a teacher, they can reuse any of the assignments that have been used in that original classroom for a new classroom. And one of the things that I really like about that structure is actually that we can create all of the modules, all of the content, we can share that across our Google Drive, and then they can be leveraged, as well as the individual assignments can be then further personalized for the teaching partner in a specific school. And we can talk about how that actually works in sort of the mechanics part of it. But thinking about, all right, what is the most essential part of this? Is it to copy over all of the content? Well, in that case, why don't we just put it all in Google Drive and then just share it with them, right? And then there it is, they can put it in their About section and then they can create their assignments. However, if there is something compelling about the way Schoology is working for you, there are lots of opportunities for us to explore this year and to talk about what it means. Oh, this is a better use case and things like that. So I don't know that that fully answered like, oh, you should do this or you should do this. But I think that's also a focus of this group. Lori, I see you really interested in getting into this conversation. What would you like to be talking about?
We also want to think about, you know, Amanda, thank you so much talking about Saba. We need, I know there are great courses out there, much like McKinley's Films. We need a centralized place, a catalog, so that people know where to go to. And I want us to think about, and then we're going to meet together around, when we think about the instructional model, phase 1, 2, and 3. I know Shelley and other content areas, they've linked like a video so people can see what guided reading looks like, for example. We also want to make sure for any of those strategies on our instructional model, we have courses so that, and it's not a one-time hit. And that's where you guys have been amazing in that we develop cohorts, and that teachers include as part of that cohort examples of how they're using it and get real-time feedback from facilitators. So that is a definite vision as to where we need to go with this. I know the math adoption team, or now I'm calling them the tsunami team. We're also Gretchen's model. She's so brave. Thanks for sharing around that cultures of thinking. So that's a teacher level. We also want to think about what would that look like and what courses might we offer to leaders? Would it be the same course or might it be something a little different? So that's another group. The other and the most important part, because all of you are immediately thinking, okay, here's how we can get this done. I try to continually remind us about our coaching tree. So the beautiful thing about this kind of course development is that we can start bringing people that we are building their capacity. For example, Stephanie read it over at Vaughn. I'm going to ask her to be part of the exit criteria course. I'm looking to her as how might I support her in her leadership in a few ways. One is the course development, and then also the facilitation. So we don't have to always facilitate, but it may be kind of that scaffolded model, like Kim is teaching me how to do this. I work with her. We kind of co-facilitate one, and then the next time I take it on. And Kim, you know, I may check with her as kind of my coach, but really I'm taking that on. So it gives us some opportunities to build some capacity that the human body that we all have was never intended to carry. So I just want us to think around that aspect of the instructional model, first and foremost for teachers, because that's also going to get us to needs-based professional learning, as well as interest, so that if I'm not doing a certain kind of strategy or I'm stuck, my principal knows that there's this catalog of ways that I can approach science instruction, etc. So I just kind of wanted to paint a broad picture of where we're going. And you're already in it, but I wanted to also make sure that we're all, again, aligned and you know, sharing best stuff, because you guys have got it. And we also have, think about it, like EPR days or any of those late starts, people could, you know, teams or whole schools could do a course, and we could develop some facilitator notes for a principal or a teaching partner at that site. And so, you know, last week I heard one of the directors say that Jim was driving around town doing a professional learning for a school. And I was like, oh, he's got so much to do, right? So how might we develop a course so that, I mean, Jim's expertise but could be there, and we're also building capacity. So I hope that gives also kind of a chin lift to understand where we're going and why. And like I said, you guys are already doing it. So now it's just encasing it in a catalog and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think the guidance around using Saba as that cataloging place and the way in which people register for things and keep track of all that information, I think that's really valuable. Just one last piece of guidance that I think was helpful for my thinking when I was sort of started this work around using Google Classroom as a PD tool. One is thinking about content and objectives as a content within Google Drive, whether that's a folder structure or I have a series of documents where I have the modules labeled and I have videos, and all of that content can and live inside of the Drive. The conversation and collaboration is obviously happening in Classroom, which is directly linked to the Google Drive folders and the content. And then the evidence of learning and application is either an assignment within Classroom or it's a Google form or a quiz that's been used within a Google form. So just thinking about those three places, they're all interrelated. They're all a part of it, but that we focus on the conversation and collaboration where we know we're building relationships with our participants, where we know we're building relationships with one another. And so in terms of next steps, what we would like to do is continue this conversation and build courses together. So what I would love for you to do is, in the little group chat, what is the course that you are working on, that you would like to workshop, that you would like to develop, that you would like to go along with, and share that so that we can sort of be publicly accountable to one another to say, you know what, I would love some help and support with this. Does that make sense? Or LDC with Amanda. I love that. So continue to share, but we are at time, and I want to respect folks. We said 45 minutes, so that's about what we've taken here. Lori and I will get back together and sort of powwow about how we want to structure the following sessions and invite folks to take part in it. I just want to thank everyone for doing this work, even though it's, you know, rather enigmatic sometimes, and it becomes, I think, clearer and clearer as we do it together. So thank you all so much for taking some time wherever you are in the world. Many of us are in the building, so we could have done this together, I think. But I love the idea that we're pushing ourselves to do it a little bit differently and allow for folks that can be outside of this building for them to take part and to enjoy the conversation together. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.